whoa, 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 whoa. Lois, this is not my Batman class.
So, are you telling me we are finally getting the women's mid-card championship? I ain't gonna lie, I'm actually really excited about this. I was like, outside the people who just like, I don't like women's wrestling. And I was like, look, there's some critiques that I feel like you can actually have about it, and some things about it that I was like, I don't necessarily like. And I think sometimes we can't, it either go too far where it's like women, they suck, they can't wrestle, and it's like, that's too far. And it'd be like, they putting up great matches and all this other stuff. I was like, that's a little bit too far. We don't have like a middle compromise with it as like, hey, some of these women are boring, just like how there's some dudes that are boring or whatever. Even if they may be doing cool stuff, they boring or whatever, things like that. But I am still excited nonetheless, because at least if you're not going to be able to give them storylines to do that doesn't involve the title, well, what's the better way of giving them storylines and throwing in the damn title? So hey, sorry Becky Lynch for the fact that that's not going to happen of not having the title. But I was like, now I am going to be curious, because I was like, we'll see how it is later on. If this is just going, it almost sounded like this was going to be a title on both shows until further notice. But hey, we don't know. I prefer that. I would prefer, at least early on, it to be a title like the women's tag team title, where it just goes back and forth, at least for right now, just because I was like, I do think while there is a good amount of women, I think we still don't have enough women at the same time. And I'm not even talking about like high level amount of like women of like being like, oh, they're mid, like they're like all of them can compete for this mid card title, but that doesn't mean that all of them necessarily should, in a way. Like, because I was like, I feel like you don't have the amount, and like, yes, in comparison to the men, but the fact that you still gonna have to have people for the women's main titles, both of them on their shows. And then if you did 2 championships and also have them for that too, I was like, I don't think there's enough women for all that, to where I'm like, you're dead now. I was like, you think that the women on Raw got shafted for them going from 3 to 2 hours. Now you sort of like start just making it all about just the titles in general. They're gonna get a lot more shafted, just because it's like, there's not going to be so much placement for that. But if you sort of have it back and forth for right now, I was like, there's enough women in the mid-card title that you can also still sort of do for the main championships. It's going to be it's going to get thin at some point, just because I'm like Nia has gone through Bayley. She's about to do Naomi. It's going to be, there's Timothy Stratton going to be in that vortex. But after that, who else is going to really challenge Nia, or somebody that you can see being there? Liv, on the other hand, I was like, it's going to have something with EO, and then after that, Rhea's going to be lurking somewhere, and I was like, in the later future. But outside of that, you don't have nobody here just yet, or whatever. And it's like, yeah, all the ones I can name are going to be in the mid-card title, but who's going to really step up to face, Liv? Maybe Lyra at some point, but so I would like if it's just for both brands right now, but it sounds like it's going to be on SmackDown, so it'd be curious to see when they do the one for Raw, or just like a test run until or they're going to do it back-to-back. We'll see how it goes. But with that being said, I was like, like I said, I am excited, because I'm like, it gives them something to really do. And while Raw has sort of been lacking in this, SmackDown has been really good of basically having that next tier of women that you can see, be like, oh man, they're putting on good matches. They don't have nothing to necessarily do with being in the Nia vortex necessarily, but also like give them something. Like Miss Shin, she could be really good. I was like, she done had a couple matches and stuff like that where it would be with Nia Jax or with Chelsea and Piper. You could put it on Chelsea. You could do that as well too. I was like, Candice really got the speed title or whatever like that. But I was like, there's enough. I was like, you could do enough women there. But once again, I was like, even though they're doing a good job on there, they don't. I was like, They don't really have the women. See, I about ran through all of them. You're not gonna put it on Bianca and Jade right now. I mean, you're not gonna put on Bianca just because of like she's world heavyweight champion type of women champion material. You're not gonna do it on Jade just because of like her coming from AEW and being basically having that same title. I don't like that idea, really, to be honest, either. Naomi would be sort of one, but except for I was like, she's sort of, to me, it's like a Kofi Kingston role where it's like you can throw them into a main event match and it's like, you know, they're not going to win, but they're a good talent for that. Where like Raw have a plethora of women, but none of them you feel like, are you going to do any of the Pure Fusion Collective? I feel like no, because I feel like that's going to, like, unless, like, I feel like that alienates the crew in a way to where it's like, they should be like, maybe if Sasanya get it and they get the tag team title, that'll sort of maybe balance it out or something like that. But you could see like Kyrie saying maybe getting it and it wouldn't bother Io Sky, or I was like, you could see Raquel getting it because also like, I know this ain't, I know I'm just talking about this was cross brand or not, but you could see Raquel getting it, and because Liv got the main title. But they had so many women in that Battle Royal that I was like, yeah, you give it to a good amount of them in a way, not like Unholy, because I was like their tag team and stuff like that, or the Party Girls, no, or whatever. Oh, they're gonna probably give it to Natalya. But yeah, on SmackDown I was like, there's not that same amount of women, but I was like, but they got enough together to build something to where I'm like, yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, it might at some point probably need some call-ups. What happened to Blair Davenport? I ain't seen her in a while. Anyway, that was just a tangent. But yeah, no, I was like, yeah, if they just keep it to SmackDown, I'll say that Michin is probably the one that I think, her or Chelsea probably be the one I could see snagging it, to be honest, between those two, because I was like, them having the time Michin's gonna always be in the, probably try to fight it out, you know, do some US Open type stuff, or Chelsea Green being sort of like the little skittish heel that she got with Piper, that works out too as well. But other than that, going to the Bloodline stuff, I'm still mad that they're sort of rushing it, but I understand they only got like 2-3 weeks before War Games, so it's like they had to speed this up. And I was like, I didn't even think about it until I heard somebody else talk about it, that basically how that Jimmy might have been hurt way like longer than it was, that's why that it would have started earlier, but that's why it's sort of being fast paced because he came back so late, which I was like, okay, I get it. But I do think that they could still rush it, but I was like, the hostility and the tension isn't there in the way I was like, oh, like, we got a little bit of it with Jay grabbing Roman and basically like, hey, I told you not to talk to me like that anymore. I was like, ooh, that's good. I was like, but the Sammy thing, I liked it because it did remind you of Sammy being Usi, but I didn't like it that, like, I felt like this should have been another step, just because I was like, he immediately basically came out, and instead of really being like, not he had to be like angry or, you know, really confrontational, but he basically made it just where just like, see, I know you love me, and I was like, you were just mad Monday about having to do this, and now all of a sudden you're like really happy, like, that's the only like, you know, thing that just sort of bothered me, that I'm just like, I still need there to be a little, cause I'm like, yo, this was 4 years. This was 4 years for Jay. This was what, about year or so with Sammy, you know, cause I was like, he had a few months before the War Games. He had the stuff going through till through the Rumble and Elimination Chamber. And then we got WrestleMania and whatnot. So I was like, it's been a long minute of just either him being in Bloodline or being out of it until we just passed WrestleMania or whatever like that, where he was still, I mean, you know, I was like, it was still somewhat helping with, at least with Jay and talking him through the whole stuff or whatever. That I just wish there was still a little bit more tension. Now, I will say, I love what we're getting out of Solo during this whole thing. I was like, he's funny. I was like being like a jerk. He being sassy with it. I was like, I like this whole thing with Solo. That I'm just like, it's not what I thought. I mean, it's not what I would have wanted him sort of to do as far as how he was the right hand man, the enforcer. I was like, where Roman was scared of Solo. I was like, that done went out the way. But I do like the fact that I'm like, oh, but you are actually taking this where it's like, ha, why I gotta do something for you? That you ain't my boss no more. Like, I was like, I enjoy that. Also, Jacob Fatu actually speaking, oh, I like it, because I was like, he had some reverence in his voice and stuff like that too, where I was like, he over here talking like, and I was like, in lingo and stuff like that. I was like, okay, that's what Jacob Fatu sounds like. Okay, he sound like come out here and I'm gonna bust your ass. And I was like, that's the way he. See, I was like, Solo can sort of do what he wants. He's sort of in. I was like, he's, you know, it's almost like how we sort of pulled the veil off Roman after he would just like wreck everybody and leave, and he started being like silly with it, even if it was still like in a serious mode. Jacob Fatu being the enforcer and the badass, we sort of been seeing him as talk like a badass, you know, some dogs in here and all that shit. But so I was like, I like that amount of it or whatever. I still wish they wouldn't get their ass beat the way they do, just because I was like, Jacob and Tama Tonga, and I was like, I just wish they would have did Tama Tonga the way he was in the King of the Ring, and that sort of went away. I know, being a dead horse or whatever. Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see how things go these next couple weeks. I imagine that not Roman, but I imagine that some form of, well, Jay and Sammy and Jimmy is gonna be on both shows until like War Games, and we'll see how it goes after that. So it's gonna be something to see how their interactions go, cause, you know, after that, this does seem like Jimmy's okay now, or whatever. I was like, we didn't get the apology, but Roman threw up them ones, so everything seems fine. You know, I was like, Roman, to me, can still give them orders, even if they are sort of peers or whatever. But anyway, let me know what you think of the women's championship. Should it be for both brands? Is there enough women? Who should be the one to hold it? Also, have you liked everything that's going on with Bloodline? While Rapid, I still like all the beat points. What about you? Other than that, peace. I'm out.
Yeah, we party till the sun up. You ain't liking what we doing? Shut up. You ain't liking what we doing? Shut up.